Yeah, Alonso, I think we're ready to go.
Hello, Dodger fans. And as you saw, 5-1 loss tonight against these pesky Braves, if you will, that that just kind of threw everything in the kitchen sink at the Dodgers tonight with just pain. There's no other way to put it. It's just pain, especially because it ended up being towards the end of the game. Because truthfully, up until we'll say maybe the seventh inning, everything was kind of going the best that it could go, all things considered, with a tie game of 1-1. And the Braves just kind of did what the Dodgers do, and they grinded out. Um, Obviously Blake Trinan, who is for the most part been pretty consistent this year, we ran into the issue that we ran into, and here we are. How did you take Trinan's outing tonight, Juan?
I can't be mad at him, but I just got to tell you, overall, this sucked. Okay. what for those of you who watched our NLCS preview, what did we spend the majority of our time talking about? What are the Dodgers going to do in the ninth? And what was the problem tonight? That ninth inning. It was, I had told you before when you said who's your pick to go for the ninth, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable with Blake Trinan. I mean, I don't know who I would feel comfortable with. I don't feel comfortable blaming Blake Trinan. I mean, obviously he made a mistake. I mean, that was a shot that that
Austin Riley.
Austin Riley hit in the night. I mean, it was just a shot. But again, it was a mistake. The Dodgers pitchers today made mistakes, and the Braves made them pay. And I have to say that from watching the game, you could see that the Braves were the aggressor. And I think the aggressor always gets rewarded. And bottom line is, they made the Dodgers pay for the mistakes they made. And the Dodgers, whatever few mistakes the Braves made, the Dodgers didn't do the same.
And going back to to piggyback on the ninth, the Dodgers gave up 4 runs in the top of the ninth, and I mean, as we said in that previous show, the Braves are they're the truth. I mean, there's a lot of people were saying that the starting pitching was some of the stats were deceiving or what have you, and Fried went out and he showed. I mean, he had filthy stuff. Was changing speeds, definitely was changing the levels. His curveball was criminal. Like that dude was on. And to counter that, Walker Buehler, he got obviously into that bind with the Freddie Freeman home run in the first inning. And after that, he settled down a little bit, but you could definitely tell that he didn't have his stuff. And that's I don't think that's necessarily the blister. I think a part of it is a little bit of partially rest, because the Dodgers have just essentially been hanging out for the last 3 days, and kind of you can do simulated games, you can do all that stuff, but it doesn't emulate what this environment is, especially against the team as good as the Braves. And all things considered, you know Walker was able to really grind through that little bit of adversity that he got caught up in, and then obviously they went to the bullpen, and here we are. Dustin May got in a bind, and Brusdar Graterol was able to come through huge in that bind, and kudos to him for kind of keeping it together. But again, the ninth inning, a lot of some I saw a comment somewhere say on a mention that said like why we were spending so much time on the ninth inning. This is why, because the Braves and the Dodgers from the seventh inning on, have pretty similar stats as far as come from behind wins, kind of how they grind it out, things like that, and even after that solid home run by Kike on a curveball, that he just sat back on and it just hung and he crushed that ball. It was good to see Kike go out there and do the thing. And and off the record, Juan had said in our text in our group text, this is why I shouldn't make lineups. But I mean that's just how it goes. But after that, it was just Corey had that they didn't capitalize on that Corey mistake when Corey hit it off of I forgot whose glove it was, and we're here now. We're here. 4 runs later, the Dodgers give up, and And unfortunately, the Dodgers just made too many mistakes, and in my opinion, weren't aggressive enough.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I know this is my first time doing a post game with you, but I'll just have to say, for those of you watching, this is the reason why you watch this post game and not any other post game. Because if you go back and you watch our NLCS preview, everything we talked about on that show happened in this game. We talked about the ninth inning. We talked about the fact that it needed to be effective. And to your point, that what you had said, that maybe the blister is not the issue. This is who Bueller's been in the playoffs. He gave us the 5 innings, but he labored, right? And I think we need him to be dominant in order to have a chance to win this thing. Now, the thing is even with him not being perfect, we still had a chance to win the game. Again, if you look at the at-bats, and I know that this is the Dodgers' approach. The Dodgers' approach is very patient, work the pitchers, right? But we didn't have anything to show for it. I mean, we only scored a run on a home run. And with the exception of Game 3 against the Show Pods, our offense has struggled. I mean, we scored 5 runs in that first game against the Show Pods, but we got a little help from the Show Pods there. So I am concerned, about our offense, but it's also expected because this is the playoffs. And for those of you tuning in, these are not the Brewers. These are not the Padres, all right? The Braves are real. The Dodgers just got a wake-up call, as Roger said. We just got punched in the face, and let's see how they respond to it. Personally, I think we got kicked in the nads is what we did, and hopefully we respond. I'm a little nervous. We need a big game from Kershaw tomorrow, because the funny thing is our veterans are the ones that let us down today. The young kids, and shout out to Alonso, who in our NLCS preview was talking up Victor Gonzalez, and Victor Gonzalez was huge in this game.
And truthfully, I was actually surprised that they went Dustin May in relief. I actually thought they were going to go Julio, in that situation. And I mean, and Dustin, for the most part, he went jaw face pretty hard. He had that power change at 86, and he was hitting 100 miles an hour a couple times there, and definitely kind of was changing speeds to a certain degree and keeping those guys on their toes. And I forgot who it was that hit that ball off of him. That I was like, oh no, that's gone. And it just ended up taking an hour and a half to get to the warning track to Mookie. But that's the rich irony of this stadium, right? It's it was playing really long for the first 3 games against the Padres, and tonight the ball was for sure a little more lively. And Marcelo Ozuna, obviously, when he hit that gapper. And that ball again felt like it took like an hour to also get to the wall there. So it's one of those things where there's definitely some stuff that the Dodgers obviously they made mistakes and the Braves capitalized on them. But to your point, the Braves are the truth. Anyone that doesn't think that the Braves are not good and that they're just kind of hyped up, then you're not watching the same Braves team that I'd seen a couple times throughout the year. Again, like I said in our preview show, they're low-key quiet. And when you're low-key quiet in any sport, whether it's baseball, football, whatever, you're usually the truth. And, the other caveat going into tomorrow, the Dodgers essentially forced the Braves via injury and other things for them to use their entire bench. And they weren't even able to capitalize on that going into a tied 1-1 game. So, it's one of those things where, Victor Gonzalez obviously came up huge in that scenario, and he was able to get out our former friend Charlie Culberson out there in that huge at bat. But it might be possible that that might have been his audition to show everyone like, okay, like maybe we should use him in the ninth. That might be the spot where he might be a fit, because obviously it's not Trinan. We learned that tonight, and in a couple of those pitches they weren't great throws. It could be a lot of factors, but at the end of the day, it's definitely not the bridge that we need to where we go now. The other caveat, as far as where I'm concerned with, is tonight they only had 4 hits. Yep. And 4 hits to 8 by the Braves, and obviously we know how many home runs the Braves hit tonight. That's a huge concern, because again, a lot of people were saying these Braves are not as good on the starting pitching side. They played the Marlins and the Reds. I had said on our previous show, they're the truth. And, Max Fried went out tonight and he showed, I'm not hyped. This is real. And obviously, he went out and did what he did, and didn't show any sort of nerves whatsoever. And kudos to him. My tip of the cap to him. But I agree to your point, though, that it feels like they were kicked in the balls tonight, and they definitely have to come back from that.
Yeah, look, up until that ninth inning when that meltdown happened, I was loving this was a beautiful baseball game. I mean, these are the kind of baseball games that I like. I like 2-1. I like 3-2. I'm a big fan of pitcher's duels. Okay. Now, up until that ninth inning, they both had 4 hits. Now, I'm not expecting the Dodgers to blow everyone out. I expect, especially now that you are in the championship series, that the pitching is going to be better and that the offense is going to it's going to be harder to get to get hits. I fully expect that. But yes, now we're talking about, you have to score runs to win a game. One run is not enough to win a game. So you have to wonder about, their at-bats. I mean, I think the book is out on the fact that the Dodgers are a fastball hitting team. And what did Fried do beautifully today was he mixed in those off-speed pitches. He worked both sides of the plate. He went inside on Mookie. He was going outside. I mean, he sawed off Will Smith a couple of times on those inside pitches. But, I mean, that was pitching by Fried, and you just got to tip your hat. But now the Dodgers have to make the adjustment. Okay, they've seen Fried. Now we'll see how they react to Ian Anderson. But, I couldn't help but notice the Braves, maybe because they're more free swingers, they really seem like the aggressors at the plate, and their aggression, again, was rewarded in that ninth inning. So I just hope – I don't expect the Dodgers to change their approach at the plate because the Dodgers are who they are. That's what got them this far. But it is concerning that, they only were able to get 1 run, and it was based on a home run.
Well, and ultimately with the Dodgers too, the thing that I'm concerned with, excuse me, is the hangover of obviously not being aggressive, right? Now that going into tomorrow, it's going to linger a little bit in their minds, like, oh wait, like what's going on here, right? And that is one thing that I'm afraid of with guys like Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy that have for lack of a better term, they've been struggling a little bit, right? It's that's going to be interesting. The other thing I'm kind of curious to see is how Clayton Kershaw kind of responds tomorrow. Because Clayton obviously is, he's an emotional guy, and obviously, when pressure kind of, gets in the way of things, that's obviously always a kind of an interesting, not even storyline, just overall kind of, the reaction, if you will, to what happened tonight. Because I mean, obviously someone was going to lose, right? Yeah. And it's a matter of for the first time that is in the postseason, but it's just a matter of kind of how do I get back, to where we were, and how do we get back to kind of those winning ways. And at the end of the day, they have to string together and rope together some hits, and and not make mistakes, obviously going after them and being aggressive, and I get why Blake Treinen was essentially going inside on the Panda. I get it. They're trying to make him uncomfortable, to get him off the plate a little bit. And it's going to happen. It happens to JT all the time, just because of how much JT hugs the plate. So, at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily worried about that. But for me, that ninth inning, what's concerning with Blake doing that is they're trying to get over that hump with the Jansen situation, right? Yeah. And the last thing that you want to do is make those mistakes where it could potentially put you in a similar situation as to what Jansen would have done if he's that much of a liability per se. So, there's some guys obviously that had a great audition tonight in Brewstar and in Victor. It's just a matter of how do they rebound from this tomorrow. And looking ahead to tomorrow, Ian Anderson's going. Dodgers have not seen him. He's a rookie, 1.95 ERA, in 32 innings, 32.1 innings, and he's only given up 7 earned runs all year, and 1 bomb, 1 home run off of him all year. That's a stat that I kept kind of seeing everywhere, all over the place. And his record is 3-2 with just a microcosm of what it would be as a sample size, right? But obviously the Dodgers are going to go in tomorrow and, before doing anything, and watch that tape on him. Mark Pryor's going to break it down and do whatever. And what I'm curious to see is the lineup going into tomorrow. Is Kike going to be there? Because again, there's no history as far as stats go. So this is one of those where, as we said in our previous show, the Dodgers emphasize stats quite a bit. So I'm kind of curious, as to who you think may come out of that lineup tomorrow, going into what's going on with what happened tonight.
I think Austin Barnes will definitely be in the lineup tomorrow.
Right.
So that means Will Smith is probably going to DH. That's what they've been doing when Austin Barnes has been catching. Is Will Smith has been the DH because they like Barnes catching Kershaw. But I got to ask you this: did you start seeing the Dodgers tighten up towards the end of that game? Because it felt like to me that Braves dugout was completely loose throughout the game. And it's something that you had talked about in our preview show, is that the Dodgers are the ones that have all the pressure. And you could see the Braves have nothing to lose. They were very carefree in that dugout. And I felt like there was an at-bat by Muncy late in the game. I think it might have been in the 6th or the 7th inning, where he was swinging at a pitch that was high and in. And it seemed very un-Muncy-like, because usually Muncy has a pretty good control of that strike zone, and it was very undisciplined. And I felt like, are they starting to press now because they're starting to feel the pressure?
I definitely feel like they were pressing more so than usual. They definitely weren't as patient as they normally are in the batter's box. And I mean, that's one thing that, that's what kind of happens when that pressure gets to you, right? I don't even necessarily think it's a matter of like, oh, we have to, win game one. But I saw the stat earlier where in the NLCS, since the NLCS began, is, whoever wins game one tends to win the series 74% of the time. So game one is obviously important in the NLCS, right? Or in any championship series, for that matter. It's a matter, in my opinion, though, because there's still that outlier percentage, going from 74 as far as, moving forward, is, okay, what do we do tomorrow? And obviously you have arguably the best left-handed pitcher in a generation going tomorrow. And you're going, he's going against a kid in Ian Anderson who's, he's no scrub, but by all means, Kershaw's resume to his can't compare, right? So obviously you kind of go with that intimidation factor, if you will, but also the Braves, kind of going back to that the looseness of it all, they know they're good, they know they can bang, and so it's a matter of them, coming out every single day, and they did it all year, like, hey, we know what we can do. Ozzie Albies, who I mentioned in the previous show, had some fantastic defensive plays tonight, and on top of that, he hit that bomb. So they know they're good top to bottom. It's just a matter of the Dodgers being able to counter that, to be able to create and produce runs as far as that goes. Another huge thing, and someone said it, I see the comment thing here, Chris Taylor seemed off tonight, and I forgot who it was. Someone threw a 95-mile-an-hour heater just right down the middle. Totally missed it. And that's not Chris Taylor-like, right? So, there's a few things where everyone's timing was a little off, and definitely, for the first, I would say, 4-ish innings of a game, everyone's kind of just trying to feel each other out a little bit and get the timing of it all. But I just think the Dodgers were just 2 to 3 steps behind the Braves. And the Braves, again, they're good. They're legit. Anyone that thinks that they're not matched up with the Dodgers you're crazy. Just because they don't have the sexy rotation names, they're good, and that bullpen is just as good. They showed it tonight going into that 9th inning, as far as how they were able to counter anything that the Dodgers try to do. So it's one of those things where I'm curious to see how they bounce back tomorrow. I'm hopeful that Kershaw just comes out and does the old Kershaw jaw face and just drops the hammer on him. But it's one of those things where a huge part of it is the offense. The offense has to show up tomorrow. And if they don't show up, it's just going to put even more pressure on that rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, I don't want to sit here. I hope I don't sound like an alarmist. And to your point, I mean, in 2018, that NLCS against the Brewers, they lost the first game, and they ended up winning the series. The same thing happened in 88 against the Mets. They lost that first game, and they came back and won the series. And look, they were in the game. They were with the Braves stride for stride up until that 9th inning. So it's not like they can't compete with the Braves. The problem is they have to capitalize on mistakes. Like everything in sports, it's the team that executes that ends up winning. So when you make mistakes, you have to make the other team pay. And I hope that the Dodger offense can go ahead and do that because they need. I felt a lot like the Dodger pitchers had to be perfect throughout this game because even once they scored the Braves scored that second run, it felt like they were up 10. And that's the pressure that you have to alleviate on these pitchers, and that not every pitch has to be perfect, because I think that's when you end up making a mistake. And I think that's what happened to Blake Trinan in that ninth. I think he felt he needed to be perfect, and he ended up just grooving one right down the middle.
Well, and one thing of concern with Walker is the 5 walks. That's not Walker-like. I don't know. Again, I don't know if the blister played a factor. I haven't seen like the stats on how many times he may or may not have thrown the cutter and the slider. The fastball was there. The fastball was there. The curveball didn't have the bite on it that it normally has. But the 5 walks is just not Walker-like, and that's one thing that against the Braves, you can't. A team like the Braves, you can't do that. Because once you get to the championship series level, of anything, whether it's football, basketball, whatever. These are, in theory, the 2 best teams for that league, right? So you can't question that, and the Braves know that, and the Dodgers know that, right? But you can't, you have to remember that when you're out there trying to execute. And I think a lot of it with Walker is I think he just got behind in so many counts that he was just trying to force the issue, that's where those walks came from. And I mean, and to be honest, a stat that I don't really like, that I think is kind of overhyped in this era of the game, is how many people swing at the first pitch. Like it's something like the stat is preposterous. It's something like 0.539 is the average of like the league average for teams that get that first pitch that they swing at to get a hit. So I think everyone kind of knows what's coming, especially with guys like Corey Seager, with guys like Cody Bellinger, Marcell Ozuna, guys like that tend to swing at that first pitch, right? But it's a matter of what you do with the second pitch. That if you're up 1-0, or if you're or 0-1, whatever the case would be, the count is. If you go out and you try to force the issue, kind of like Walker was doing tonight, that's when you're going to get those 5 walks, because those guys were being patient. They were sitting back, waiting, expecting. Okay, like we know this dude throws 97. Like let's just sit back and see what he does. So, that's where I think tomorrow the Dodgers have to counter with, okay, we definitely weren't patient like we're supposed to be. Now we've kind of seen these guys this first go around, same, with the pitchers. Now they've seen, kind of their tendencies or what have you. And it's a matter of the Dodgers, just being patient tomorrow. Again, my main concern, though, going into tomorrow is that offense getting going. With guys like Cody tonight, Cody had the 1 strikeout. Muncy had the 2 strikeouts. Corey, had 2 strikeouts. Those are concerning things, essentially, because you want to get that offense going. And obviously, that's just not going to happen if you're out here, doing the thing. The Dodgers also only got 2 walks tonight. So that's another thing, if you want to manufacture runs and be patient, you have to get more of those walks. But, I think all in all, like you said, I'm not trying to be an alarmist either. The only caveat is, a lot of this is psychological as well going into this series, going into tomorrow, because they've not seen Ian Anderson. So, a lot of, sometimes you start creating that doubt, and we get back here, like I've talked about with Cody Bellinger. But, tomorrow is going to be, I think tomorrow is kind of the make it or break it, because if they get down 2-0 against these Braves, that's going to be a pretty daunting task to kind of come back from 2-0, even 3-0, to be able to to do what the Red Sox did way back when and try to win that 7-game series. And going into tomorrow, I'm kind of curious to what you think here. Who do you think they should now, after we've kind of seen the sample size of the relief, who they should go to tomorrow if they're in another similar situation?
I mean, I don't think you can ignore what Brusdar did today. I mean, 2 runners on, no outs, and got out of that inning. And you can't ignore what Victor did. Honestly, if you're going to need somebody in the 9th right now, it's the young guys who I'm looking at, But the problem is you needed those young guys to get to the 9th inning. So sooner or later, one of these veterans is going to have to step up. But I guess the key again is, we're putting so much pressure on our pitchers that we need that offense. So if we are in the 5th inning tomorrow, and we're getting shut out. I know this is not, especially this particular Dodger team, it's not their way. How soon do we start playing small ball to try to manufacture runs? How soon do we start bunting? I know everybody hates bunting, all of this. You know, it's a bad word, but what if we bunt against those shits? What if we try stealing bases? We have to try to do something to try to put that pressure on the Braves, because it's like you said, with Buehler, they were sitting on the fastball. I mean, they're going to have to do something. I think they have to do something to help the pitching staff. The pitching staff can't be out there every inning being afraid to give up a run, because they know that that's it. If I give up a run, it's over. I feel like the Dodger pitchers go out there feeling like they have to pitch a shutout in order to have a chance in this series.
Well, and I think they feel that way when the offense isn't producing, if that makes sense. If I really do feel that if they're, they have a lead, if they have a pad, if you will, that they feel a little more loose, right? And that makes sense. If I have a 5-run buffer, then I can work with that. But the other flip side of that is, all the while, everyone's loose, right? And kind of like you were saying a little while ago, the Braves were super loose throughout the game. And I think a part of it is that pressure, and I think, now is the time where it's like, okay, cool. Like we got here, we know the tools that we have. We just kind of have to, okay, let's reassess and get back to where we need to be. And, guys like Mookie Betts, guys like Corey Seager, guys like Justin Turner, who all struck out tonight, and Corey Seager struck out twice. Those are dudes that are too good to be doing that and too good to just kind of sit back and just get in their own head, right? So I think tomorrow it's going to be, a little bit of a reset. What I'm curious to see is what they do with the bottom half of the lineup. I don't know if AJ Pollock will DH tomorrow. Again, AJ also has not seen Ian, so I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. I don't expect Kike in the lineup tomorrow. I don't know if Chris Taylor will be in the lineup just because of what happened tonight. But then again, the Dodgers are kind of notorious for throwing curveballs at everyone, and instead of going with the obvious, like, hey, maybe we should go with so and so here, they throw that individual there again, right? I'm expecting Jock Peterson to be in the lineup tomorrow. Almost guaranteed that he'll be in there just because Jock doesn't swing at a fastball he doesn't love, and this dude has all the fastballs and then some, right? For the most part, I mean, that's like the one big change that I'll kind of like predict that'll happen, that Jock will be in the lineup. As far as what they do, I could definitely see Edwin Rios being a DH tomorrow. Just because AJ had the one hit, but aside from that, there wasn't a whole lot, right? And Kike with, obviously the biggest hit of them all. I just don't know if it makes sense to put him in there, especially with them, knowing, hey, we have to do this tomorrow, right? But you obviously, in my opinion too, that's the other issue we run into with this Dodgers team. They don't tend to go with the hot hand sometimes. No. So, that's why it's kind of weird to kind of even try to, predict whatever the case may be. But here we are again, trying to, as I forgot what Brewers game it was in, but it's, when that Brewers bullpen game where they just kind of threw everyone for a curveball and all the fire alarms went off and they didn't know what to do, and then they bounced back. So I definitely foresee it happening, but I would be nervous if they go down 2-0, if I'm honest with you.
Well, of course. I mean, look, what did we talk about in the preview? Look, I suffer from PTSD when it comes to the Dodgers. I didn't want to say it, but we got Niedenfuhr tonight. We got Niedenfuhr in the 9th inning, and that's what we talked about in the preview, right? But, I mean, here's the thing. I sit there and I hope the Dodgers win. I expect them to lose. I'm watching the game, and it's like, when is it going to happen? When is this horrible thing going to happen to the Dodgers? And, of course, it happened in the 9th inning. And that's just playoff baseball, Right. That's just what happens when you have two good teams going at each other. I mean, this is going to happen, but they have to respond tomorrow. Now, that being said, if they do go down 2-0, I see what you're saying, but it seems like the Braves in games 3 and 4, especially in game 4, are going to go with the bullpen. Right. And then their game 3 starter, I'm not really convinced is going to give them innings, even though he did pitch 6 scoreless innings against the Marlins. But as we get further into this series, I think this is the Dodgers' depth and the fact that they're seeing these relievers a lot. I'm hoping that's when they're going to start taking advantage and the series is going to turn. I mean, I think it was huge that they got 6 innings out of Free tonight for the Braves. So I'm curious now, like everything, the Dodgers need to make the adjustment. They need to counter. But I'm not going to, with this Dodger team, I'm not going to panic if they do go down 2-0, because I do think in games 3 and 4 that the pendulum might swing back to the Dodgers in this series.
What I'm curious to see is if they go down 2-0, which obviously I, knock on wood, hope it doesn't happen, is how the Dodgers counter that with who they have start. In my opinion, I mean, at that point, based on what we saw tonight, it's super possible that Dustin May goes. I'm still kind of blown away that they haven't used Tony Gonsolin even in relief, especially if they're planning on going in bullpen games here and there. But it's one of those things where that's one of those weird surprises that I don't understand, right? But to me, that's another weapon in the arsenal, if you will, that's out there that's lingering for the Dodgers. And who knows what the Walker Buehler blister situation is, right? He went 100 pitches tonight, 95 the other day. So it's one of those things where that might also be a factor, kind of looking ahead. But the other thing too is we have to remember they're also playing an early game tomorrow, even though it's not early, not like an early afternoon game, if you will. It's still early enough where it's going to change your routine a little bit, and then whether they're in a bubble or not, we all know baseball players are creatures of habit. And Clayton Kershaw's I'm going to show up to the ballpark 6 hours before the game guy. And, obviously that's going to change his routine going from tonight they played late to tomorrow they play early. So that's, one of those things to kind of keep an eye on and just kind of see how Clayton rebounds, kind of reinvigorating everyone from there. For you, who, obviously, the Braves did what they did. From the Braves side, who stood out for you tonight?
You know what? I mean, they're a solid team. I mean, honestly, I'm really afraid to pitch to Freeman at all, at any at-bats in this game. I mean, that shot that he hit off of Walker Buehler in that first inning, I mean, I think the exit velocity on that was like 167 miles per hour or something.
Something dumb, yeah.
And then he made some good contact in the 9th inning. I mean, Freeman really scares me. Osuna's just a free swinger. It's just the overall approach by the Braves. Like, I really wasn't worried about Riley until he hit that shot in the 9th, where I was like, he has that kind of power, that he can supply that. So, again, it's just that free swinging mentality that the Braves have. I feel like, up until this, before the game started, we just kept talking about there's not going to be any home runs in this series. This ballpark is going to take, well, the Braves really did shut everyone up about home runs in this ballpark, because, I mean, it wasn't like they just hit balls that barely cleared the fence. I mean, they hit moonshots in this game against the Dodgers, and the Dodgers, with Kike being the exception, was the only one. But the Braves, it concerns me that they're just playing with a level of confidence that, if it keeps building, it might be something that causes the Dodgers to tighten up. And I just don't want to see the Dodgers tighten up, because I've seen that before. And I know what the result. I know how that movie ends, to see them tighten up. So I'm hoping that the Dodgers do bounce back tomorrow and at least answers that, and we don't start seeing a snowball effect.
And all the credit in the world to the Braves pitcher or Braves hitters. They went out and did what they were going to do, right? And it's one of those things where obviously there's the name effect, right? People are always looking at the lineup for the names. These dudes can ball. Obviously, Freddie Freeman's Freddie Freeman. Everyone knows, that dude can hit a ball anywhere. But don't forget about the rest of that lineup. And to your point, Austin Riley, who has some of the bigger forearms around, that dude proved why he's got big old forearms. I mean that ball went, I think, 448 feet or something dumb like that. Like, that was a bomb. Yeah. So it's one of those things where and I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to criticize Dave Roberts making the pitching decisions in kind of like those close situations. Just for for argument's sake, and I'm not a Dave Roberts apologist. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm on record where I don't like the Dodgers incorporation of the front office and manager, kind of making like these strategic decisions that don't necessarily need to be made. But tonight he was saying in the post game show or the post game interviews that Brusdar Graterol got hit in the palm by a comebacker that ended the inning, and he's fine, but he just didn't want to send him out for another inning despite the low pitch count. So,
you know what? I don't buy that. I think they were convinced they were only going to use Graterol for one inning. I think Roberts is using that as an excuse. I think they only want to use Graterol for one inning. I don't think this early in the series you want to expose your relievers that much. If you start using Graterol for 2 innings by games the 3 or 4, the Braves now start getting Graterol's timing down. You're going to lose Graterol's effectiveness. And
right.
That's why I think we can't lose sight of the fact that this NLCS is going to be played 7 games in a row. There's no days off in this series. So now we're going to see what happens in games 5 and 6 when some of these relievers have pitched 3-4 games in a row, and maybe their stuff isn't as sharp as it was before. So that I think that's Roberts, playing baseball there with his answer. But I really don't. I'd be surprised if they let anyone other than a starter like Dustin May go more than 1 inning. I really think they're going to try to limit the exposure on those relievers.
So I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I saw the replay of the ball coming back. It looks a little rough. So like I see why they did what they did. The other part of it is I think at that point, because of how close the game was, I think in their minds they thought, okay, like we have a shot at this. Let's if these guys can grind out these at bats, if they can go out and do the thing, then we won't need to deep dive into the rest of these guys. I get Blake Trinan out there, and we still have a shot. Obviously, that's a part of the gamble with the game, right? Because the other part is you might have that strategy, but you still have to play the game. So I think it's one of those gambles that didn't necessarily pay off in Roberts' favor, and obviously the Dodgers' favor, because here we are now, the first loss of the postseason, 5-1 to an electric Atlanta Braves team. Someone I saw on Twitter that someone said that Kershaw will get lit up in playoff. Kershaw is not playoff Rondo. Again, I've said this before. We haven't seen actual playoff Kershaw, because if you think about it, the dude got gypped by the Astros. Dude got gypped by the Red Sox. Has there been moments where he's been left in a little too long? Yeah, that's with any pitcher. Look at Walker Buehler tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried necessarily about Kershaw. What I'm worried about is the late innings as far as what the Dodgers do. I ultimately think that Kershaw rather is going to go out and he knows what the task at hand is. All the semantics of whatever, what time the game is, all that stuff. I don't think that's going to be a factor as far as that goes for Clayton. What's going to be the factor is just Freddie Freeman hit a home run and get off of him in the first inning. Does Marcell Ozuna, hit a double gapper off of him in the first inning? That's when you start to kind of see stuff unravel and when you have to make those adjustments on the fly. So I'm not necessarily worried about Clayton. What I'm worried about is the bullpen and what they decide to do to kind of bridge everything to the 9th inning.
Well, but that's what's so frustrating about this game, right? I mean, baseball is a game of failure. Baseball is a game where if you get 3 hits out of 10 at-bats, you're considered really, really good, right? So it's frustrating to sit there and watch that the Braves capitalize on the mistakes that the Dodgers make, but the Dodgers don't capitalize on the Braves' mistakes. And I think that's what needs to happen is the Dodgers in a series like this close, they can't miss their opportunities because you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get. When Fried hangs those curveballs, you have to make them pay. It is concerning to me, again, that you bring in somebody with off-speed pitch, a menu of off-speed pitches, and the Dodgers struggle to hit that. So it's frustrating to watch. I still have hope, but tomorrow I just think that I like Justin Turner's approach. If you saw Justin Turner was going to right field a lot, but I mean, to your point, Albies was playing great defense out there in second base. They also positioned them very well. So hats off to the Braves scouting. The Dodgers just got beat today.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It's just not. It wasn't their day. It was a damn good game up until that ninth inning. They got beat. It's now how they respond, right? To steal a line from Rocky Balboa. It's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up. So it's time for the Dodgers to get back up tomorrow and answer the bell. They got to punch them back in the face in round 2.
Well, and one thing too, to not to credit Max Fried as well. He was changing speeds and changing eye levels like Clayton Kershaw does, and that's one of those things where, that's one of those like things that people are gonna overlook, if you will, because of the score. But Max Fried, he was challenging the Dodgers hitters and going at them, and he was essentially saying, "Okay, I'm gonna hang this ball here, and what are you gonna do with it, right?" So it's one of those things where they got beat, and they got beat by a hell of an outing by Max Fried. And their bullpen also showed up, and they went out and did what they were going to do. Mark Melancon still has it. It doesn't matter. I don't care what anyone says. Mark Melancon still has it, and it wasn't an issue whatsoever. In comparison, though, just to kind of compare apples to oranges, the Braves tonight after Fried used 3 relievers. The Dodgers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the other the other part of the attrition, if you will, is obviously we said in our previous show that one way that the Dodgers were going to be successful was getting into that bullpen early. Obviously that didn't happen. It took until the 6th inning for the Dodgers to really get to the bullpen, but after that it was their bridge to their 9th to be able to go out and do their thing. So tomorrow, like you said, I hope that the Dodgers just get back up, take it off the chin and do that. And relatively speaking, the Dodgers are known for one of those teams that they take it off of the chin pretty well, and they should come out tomorrow firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I think it's important for tomorrow for them to score early, and I think you need to get some length out of Kershaw. Even if it's not a dominating performance by Kershaw, we need, if he can go 6, if he can even go into the 7th, we definitely need length from him, especially if the way it's lining up, it looks like it's going to be bullpen games in game 3 and 4. And then who knows? I mean, are you going to bring back Buehler on 3 days rest for game 5? What are you going to do? I think you can't underestimate the fact that this is a game, a series that's not going to have any days off. We're so used to seeing Kershaw coming up, pitching on 3 days rest, or Buehler, that's not going to be, it may be an option, but if you have them pitching on 3 days rest, if they're only already giving you 4 innings, you can't expect more than 4 innings if they're pitching on 3 days rest. So again, we're putting unnecessary pressure on the bullpen in a series where the bullpens are, as we saw tonight, the bullpens, I think, are going to be what's going to determine this series.
Well, and I think another huge factor is not only the bullpen, but how soon they get to the bullpen. As you saw with Walker tonight, Walker went 5 innings, and they weren't Walker Buehler 5 innings, if you will. But if it would have been a Walker Buehler 5 inning outing, then I think we would have been in a better situation going into that bullpen, right? Where I thought they were going to go after Walker was Julio. I don't know if they're saving him for potentially a start in 3 or 4, because that's another option there, and keeping Dustin kind of as that super reliever, if you will, and obviously kind of creating that bridge and gap at the same time. It also wouldn't surprise me, based off of tonight, if Dustin ends up maybe throwing in the 8th or the 9th to kind of see how he does in that situation. Because, I mean, all things considered, he did great. His stuff had the bite on it. His stuff, he definitely went out there with like, okay, I can do this. I here I am. Like, you're going to see me and you're going to feel me. And he did great. It's just obviously the issue with Blake was, not only does Blake take the loss tonight, but the mistakes, and that's ultimately what this, the story of this game is going to be, is the mistakes as far as one team capitalizing on them and the other one not. And truthfully, the Braves kind of had everything going against them. when Pache came into the game, when Duval got hurt, that's one of those where they already had to go to their bench early, right? So now they're down a guy. That's one of those things that the Dodgers didn't necessarily capitalize on. That very early on could have gone and kind of swung the momentum, if you will, of the game. And here we are, 5-1 defeat. But overall, though, Walker, he was hitting the zone. He just felt off. And again, I don't think it's the blister. I at least I hope it's not the blister.
But that's been Walker the whole season. We have not seen the Walker Buehler of last year or previous seasons. He took so long to get ready. I mean, I do find it concerning that he is one of those pitchers that doesn't have a spring training routine that gets him ready, that he basically uses the season to get ready. And in a short season, and especially since he missed time with his injury, I don't think we've ever seen Walker Buehler get to the point where he is Walker Buehler. And that's why we're seeing him struggle to get through 5 innings.
Well, and there was a point where, towards the end of the outing, where he walked like Pache, and he was struggling a little bit with Markakis, but he was able to kind of come back and get ahead of him and strike him out. And that's where I kind of was hoping, like, okay, this might be him making that, the turn before they pull him. But it's just when he started giving up those singles that they were just mistakes as far as him missing his spots. And that's for me is what's worrisome with him, is him missing those spots, because obviously we know he's a power guy, right? He's not necessarily the most finesse guy in the world, but he's got the control. But for me, what's concerning is, he's hitting 95, 97, which is great to see, but you could definitely tell that he's just missing his spots. So that could be an array of things. Obviously, it could be the blister. It could also just be him coming out of the stretch, maybe, different mechanical things that could also be affecting it, right? But what's concerning out of all of that, though, is for sure the walks. I know I'm emphasizing the walks, but you can't give up walks to this Braves team.
No.
Because if you continuously do that against these guys, or even when Marcell Ozuna got on there, with that stand-up double, like that's one of those where it's like you can't make those sorts of mistakes against this lineup because they will make you pay. Absolutely. Well, and going into tomorrow, like I said, Clayton Kershaw will be going up against Ian Anderson. It's one of those where I think Clayton's going to go in thinking it's a do or die situation. Because obviously being down 1-0 in the NLCS is one thing. Being down 2-0 against this Braves team is another thing. But I'm just kind of curious to kind of see and hear your prediction for tomorrow.
I think the Dodgers win tomorrow. I think it's going to be another close game. I think we're going to have another stress-filled game where it's going to be another situation where we're going to be talking about what happened in the ninth. But I feel that this time, I think the Dodgers do come through. I do think the Dodgers offense is going to pick up. I'm not expecting a blowout tomorrow. I'm just expecting a good hard nose. I felt this sense of urgency from the Braves tonight, and I expect that sense of urgency to come from the Dodgers tomorrow.
And to be honest, I'm not expecting any blowouts this entire series. I think this entire series is just, like you said in our previous show, potentially seven, well, in your case, in your prediction, 7 games of just stress, like I'm going to chew through my fingernails type baseball. And again, it's one of those things where, the Dodgers obviously need to come back tomorrow. I think it's going to be a close game. And I agree, the 9th inning is going to be another like, oh my God. And it's either good or oh my God or bad oh my God, but it's going to be one of those where it's going to be hard to see. I personally do hope, though, that after tonight, that they give either Victor or Brewstar that opportunity in that inning, in that scenario, to see what they can do. Because it's one thing to talk about it, it's another to do it. And until you put that guy in that situation, and Victor Gonzalez and Brewstar, both of them, they both got in those binds and they came out great. Jake McGee, obviously, we saw with Jake what happened. We saw with Blake what happened. And it's like you said, it's a veteran needs to stand up at some point. And I think the veteran that'll stand up tomorrow will be Justin Turner, because Justin was going out and doing, like you said, what you needed to do, string together a hit into right, even though with Ozzy there, but you just got to get that gapper and just get it going. So, it's I think tomorrow is just going to be a matter of patience for all of us, not only the players, but just patience and in every single at bat and just grinding it out and then just letting Kershaw do the thing. And as long as they can give him a little bit of a lead, we won't be here tonight in pain, talking immensely about the pain that we're feeling because of the 5-1 defeat that we experienced tonight.
Hey, it's like Vin Scully said, when have the Dodgers ever done anything easy?
It's true. It's 100% true.
Just think about it, Dodger fans. We didn't see Pedro Baez tonight. We didn't see Joe Kelly. Just wait until we see those guys in a game. That's when your blood pressure is really going to go through the roof.
And that's an interesting point, that we didn't see Pedro or Joe in what you would call a high leverage situation. And I'm kind of surprised by that, only because that's why they paid Joe Kelly to come. They wanted Joe Kelly for those situations, especially in these types of series, because he's been there before.
Don't you think that maybe we didn't see Joe Kelly because he was saving him for the 9th? If the Dodgers took a lead in the 8th?
A part of me was thinking that, but the other part of me was, that's almost like it's un-Dodger-like, if that makes sense. I think at the end of the day, the Dodgers got beat, right? Yeah. And they got beat by the better team tonight, and it's a matter of coming back tomorrow. But the bullpen is definitely concerning. The offense, at some point, the offense will start clicking. These guys are too good to do that, right? But the bullpen for sure is a big woe, especially in the 8th, 9th, because of the issues that we've had. And the concerning part in all that is they haven't really, shown a plan, if you will, to what they're going to do. Obviously, tonight's plan, that's obviously not the solution. No. So maybe tomorrow they go Joe Kelly and Pedro Baez.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Expect another clincher tomorrow. Expect another one where, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot from Dodger fans on Twitter tomorrow if things go left. But, we didn't see Dylan Floro either. So, it's a long series. I doubt that he's going to go, but I think it's very telling that in the pressure situations, that in the high leverage situations, you saw the young guys. And the young guys were the ones that delivered. And that's why I think in the end, if Buehler's not going to be the Buehler that we expect, it's the young guys who are going to save and carry the Dodgers in this series.
Well, like you said in our previous show, we didn't trade these guys away for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Now is the time for them to kind of flourish. We've obviously seen what Julio can do. We've seen what Dustin can do. Obviously, we've seen what Walker can do. We haven't seen what Tony Gonsolin can do. And I know a lot of teams in trade conversations have asked for Tony Gonsolin. And so it strikes me as odd, if I'm honest with you, as to why they haven't used them at all. They've carried him, haven't used them, and he's got a preposterous ERA. So that's one of those where it's like, what are you holding out on as far as not using him?
To be fair, they took the Brewers out in 2 games, and then they took the Joe Pods out in 3. Now, that 3rd game, I expected them to go longer with Dustin May. So I understood that you were holding Gonsolin back for game 4. That's why I thought we haven't seen it. But I fully expect to see Gonsolin in this series. And I think he's going to need to come up huge for the Dodgers in order to win this thing.
And again, to your point, it's definitely going to be the young guys that are gonna come up huge, especially against these Braves. Because if we learn anything tonight, they don't die. they're like cockroaches. They do not die. And hopefully going into tomorrow, again, it's fair to say we're chalking this up as they just got beat by the better team tonight. But we know out of the 2 teams, the Dodgers for sure top to bottom are the better team, even with those 9th inning woes. They just have to play like it. And, going into tomorrow, a huge stat that's, going to linger in everyone's mind is Kershaw's 2-0 with a 1.93 ERA, 14 innings pitched with 19 Ks. So, don't talk to me about there's no such thing as a Clayton Kershaw in the postseason, because he's in mid-season form.
Right, but just keep in mind that there's paper champions, and then there's the reasons why we play the games.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even though on paper the Dodgers may be the better team, they have to go out in the field and they have to show it. Because tonight, especially in that ninth inning. The Braves brought it, and the Dodgers looked shell-shocked. They looked a little wobbly there in that ninth inning.
No, and it's going to be super interesting tomorrow because, I mean, this is the loosest that I think I've seen Clayton Kershaw ever. You know, he, for the most part, he's always pretty on edge, you know, especially game day. You know, he's pretty jaw-faced. He's been pretty relaxed all the way through. So maybe, obviously he's talked about having Walker Buehler there, you know, helping him kind of keep him loose. You know, the Mookie Betts effect is something that everyone's talked about. So I'm interested to see how he goes into the game tomorrow and just how aggressive he is going out of the, right out the gate. And I expect him to be aggressive. I'm fully expecting him to just attack those guys, glove side, you know, arm side, the whole bit, just to kind of throw them off their game, if you will, and definitely, push whatever happened tonight out of the way and just, focus on the task at hand. So all in all, though, it was a rough night, but can't dwell too much on it because tomorrow is another day.
That's true. We shall see.
Well, and on that note, we will wrap up this after the game show, I believe is what we're calling it. I'm pissed, so I apologize if I'm a little flustered. I'm forgetting the name of our show, but
this is the Dodger Beats post game show.
Yeah, but myself and my friend Juan here, we wish you all the best tonight. We will see you tomorrow, and until then, stay safe, and we will catch you on the flip side tomorrow.